Islamophobia. Huge problem in the West. How do I know? I spent 27 years in law enforcement, identifying terror suspects, things of that nature. However, I, too, was subjected to comments like, you doon coon, and Haji, and Sam, and you terrorist, goat herder. Now, the way you have to look at this is, whose fault is Islamophobia? We have to look at this from the outsider's perspective. As a Middle Easterner, I can't blame people calling me that Islamophobic. The reality is, what does the word phobia mean? It's the fear of something. A religion itself is not what causes fear. It is people who practice the religion that could cause that. So it's really people. When people have this perception of Islam, they're simply putting their opinions out there based on the fact that what they have seen. Ever since the 70s and 80s, with the beginning of suicide, the hostage taking in Iran, 1979, all the different terrorist groups doing operations around the world, ISIS or Daesh, and all these different factions that do atrocities under the name of a religion. Do they actually represent the religion? Are they doing the same thing that entities like the Triple K or Westboro Baptist Church and these ideologies that these fundamentalist religious groups or individuals who practice a certain religion, but they're actually utilizing that religion to push their whatever agenda it is? Now, where does the fault of Islamophobia come from? Whose fault is it? It's not the fault of the people who watch this. It's not those who happen to see it on the news. It's not the poor people who are actually not familiar with what the religion is. They simply base their opinions on what they see. So who's really at fault? The fault is on the Muslims. Now, let me get something straight. Those people that commit those atrocities, they're not Muslim. They're simply using the religion of Islam to push their agenda. In their twisted ideology, they're doing it for the purpose of God. But we all know, no matter what religion you practice, that is not what religion is. Now, if I'm going to be exposed to something to that effect, am I going to blame the person who's saying it? No. Numerous times all around the country, I personally was targeted because of things like that. But did I look at it like, oh my God, they're being Islamophobic? No, I looked at it from a logical perspective. What do they know? How did they come to this opinion? Then I have to take myself out of my situation, put myself in their situation and go, if I wasn't familiar with the religion, and the only exposure that I got was some crazy guy in Syria right before he some person in a orange suit starts yelling Allahu Akbar, what would I think of that? Because that's the only one that I know. So whose fault it is? It's the Muslims who live in the West. It's the Muslims who live in the Middle East. It's the Muslims that live all over the world who, when it comes to denying those people as being Muslims, are failing to do so. Sure, some Islamic groups will put out an email and say, we condemn this act. But who's on those email lists? Do you think the Americans are subscribed to those email lists that's only for the Muslim community? 2.1 billion Muslims in the world. You know, and I know that not everyone supports that kind of things. So rather than being silent, stand up and say something. You hear this all the time on the news. You hear it on commentaries. You hear it on social media replies. Where are all the Muslims who are condemning these actions? Where are you people? There's a few who get out there. But with 2.1 billion people, only if 100,000 of you would get on social media and condemn that, guess what? It would get rid of Islamophobia. So you wouldn't have results like this, where a child is stabbed to death simply because he's Muslim. When are you going to take responsibility and stand up? Listen, I know that in our culture, denying and being silent is how you dismiss things. You cannot do that with the Western society. You can't just ignore it, because all it does is fuel it more and more. It simply fuels the hatred more and more. Stand up and say what is wrong. Where are you at? Am I the only one that has to do this? Where's your jihad?